Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome. I'm Dr. Petsavan, and I'm so glad to see so many of you here today, ready to tackle what is often seen as the most challenging part of a research manuscript, the discussion section. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. You've done the hard work, you've designed your study, collected your data, and run the analyses. Isn't that enough? Well, the discussion is where your data truly comes to life. It's where you move beyond the what and explain the so what. It's not just a summary, it's the story of your findings. So let's dive in with enthusiasm and get ready to write something amazing. Our main goals today are to understand the purpose and structure of the discussion section, learn how to interpret our results and compare them with what others have found, and, most importantly, discuss the real-world implications of our work. By the end of our session, you'll have the confidence to draft a discussion section that is ready for publication. Ready? Let's go! So what is the core purpose of this section? Think of it as having three main jobs. First, it interprets your results in the context of your original research question. Second, it compares your findings with the existing body of literature out there. And third, it discusses the implications of your work for clinical practice, for policy, or for future research. It's also the place where we honestly identify the study's limitations and suggest what should come next. Let's talk about structure. A well-organized discussion is a reader-friendly one. You want to guide your audience logically through your thought process. Here's a simple but effective blueprint. Summarize your key findings. Start with a powerful 1 to 2 sentence summary of your most important results. For example, you might state that your intervention led to a 20% increased adherence with telemedicine. Explain those results in the context of your study's objectives or hypotheses. Compare your findings with prior studies. This is crucial. You need to situate your work within the broader scientific conversation. You should aim to cite about 3 to 5 relevant papers here. Discuss the implications. What are the practical takeaways? Maybe your findings suggest a need for policy changes like broadband expansion to support telehealth. Address limitations and suggest what should come next. Every study has limitations. Acknowledging them doesn't weaken your paper, it strengthens it by showing transparency. You might mention that your study relied on self-reported adherence measures, a common limitation also noted in other work. Let's dig a little deeper into that first step, summarizing and interpreting. The goal here is not to repeat your results section. Please do not simply restate figures or data from your tables. Instead, you want to synthesize what those results mean in relation to your research question. If you found a 20% increase in patient adherence with telemedicine, the key question to answer is, why does this matter? The answer is that it likely leads to improved health outcomes. Next, let's talk about contextualizing your findings within the existing literature. This is how you show you've done your homework and understand the field. Your job is to compare and contrast your results with what other researchers have found. Use citations to show how your findings align, contradict, or build upon previous work. For instance, you might write something like, our results align with Lee and Garcia 2022, who found telemedicine improves access, but diverge from Davis 2020, who reported lower patient satisfaction. This single sentence does so much. It shows agreement, highlights a discrepancy, and sets you up to explain that difference. Always be sure to select high-quality, relevant sources to strengthen your credibility. Now, for a topic that makes some researchers nervous, limitations. Please don't be afraid to acknowledge the weaknesses in your study. It demonstrates transparency and a deep understanding of your research. Discuss these limitations honestly but concisely, focusing only on things that could genuinely affect the interpretation of your results. For example, the reliance on self-reported adherence measures may introduce bias, a limitation noted in similar studies, Johnson and Carter 2021. Notice how this is framed? It's not a fatal flaw, it's an acknowledged issue that you can then frame as an opportunity for future research. This brings us to the exciting part, discussing the implications. This is where you explain the real-world significance of your findings. How could your results impact clinical practice, education, or public policy? Be specific about who might benefit, practitioners, policymakers, or patients. An example could be, these findings suggest policymakers invest in rural broadband to support telehealth scalability. But a word of caution. Balance your optimism with realism. Don't overgeneralize your findings beyond the scope of your study. And finally, you get to guide the next wave of research. Based on your findings and limitations, what questions are still unanswered? Propose specific research questions, populations, or methods for others to explore. For example, future studies should use objective adherence measures and examine telemedicine's efficacy across diverse cultural groups. Make sure your suggestions are feasible and flow logically from your study. Your tone matters for credibility. Purpose. Maintain credibility and professionalism. Approach. Avoid speculative language like we believe or overstatements such as revolutionary. Support your claims with evidence or citations. Example. Instead of saying, this proves telemedicine is better, opt for a more objective statement like, these findings suggest telemedicine may improve adherence, Smith et al. 2023. Tip. Use precise language and avoid jargon unless it's appropriate for your specific audience. When you're writing, keep a few guidelines in mind. Use the present tense for interpretation. For example, these findings suggest. Be concise and avoid making grand claims that your data can't support. And of course, cite appropriately to back up your comparisons. It's all about striking a balance. Present your findings with confidence, but also be open about any uncertainty. To avoid some common mistakes, remember these key points. Do not introduce new results in the discussion. Avoid simply repeating the results section. Never overstate your findings like claiming causation from a correlational study. Don't ignore literature that contradicts your findings. Addressing it head-on is a sign of robust scholarship. And finally, keep it concise. The discussion is typically only 1 to 2 pages, so make every word count. Let's look at a simple example. Summary. A 0.9% hemoglobin A1C reduction in the intervention group, p less than 0.001. Interpretation. This suggests improved glycemic control in type 2 diabetes. Literature comparison. It aligns with Smith et al. 2020, but diverges from Jones et al. Implications. This supports integration into primary care. Limitations, the study had a small sample size, n equals 150, and a single center design. Future research, future studies should involve larger, diverse populations and examine long-term effects. Let's look at an example to bring this to life. Our study found a 20% increase in patient adherence via telemedicine compared to in-person care. These results suggest telemedicine enhances chronic disease management by reducing geographical barriers, aligning with Lee and Garcia 2022. However, our reliance on self-reported adherence measures may introduce bias, as noted by Johnson and Carter 2021. These findings support integrating telemedicine into primary care and suggest policymakers invest in rural broadband. Future studies should explore objective adherence measures and diverse populations. See how it flows? Summary, interpretation, comparison, implications, limitations, and future directions, all in a concise, compelling package. And another example. Contrary to expectations, our results showed no significant difference in patient satisfaction between telemedicine and in-person consultations, challenging earlier claims that virtual care may compromise patient-provider rapport, Davis 2020. This discrepancy may reflect improvements in telehealth technology, such as high-quality video platforms, which have enhanced the patient experience since earlier studies were conducted. Additionally, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention 2024 reported a surge in telehealth adoption during the COVID-19 pandemic, suggesting that increased familiarity with virtual platforms may have normalized telemedicine for both patients and providers. This example showcases a finding, comparison, and explanation. This slide provides an example of how key findings and interpretations, along with comparisons, might appear in a published discussion section. This example illustrates how implications and further work are discussed. Here is a quick step-by-step process to follow. First, revisit your results and pinpoint the key findings. Draft a compelling opening summary. Interpret those findings in light of your objectives. Compare them with 3 to 5 relevant studies. Discuss the implications and limitations, and propose concrete directions for future research. Always check the specific guidelines for your target journal. And some practical tips. Outline your discussion before you start writing, collaborate with your co-authors, and read several discussion sections from papers in your target journal to get a feel for the style.
Want to dive deeper? Check out these resources: Reporting Guidelines, Consort for Randomized Trials, or Strobe for Observational Studies, Writing Guides, the AMA Manual of Style, or How to Write and Publish a Scientific Paper by Robert A. Day. Tools: PubMed, Google Scholar for Literature. In conclusion, the discussion section is where you truly tell the story of your research. It's your opportunity to interpret your findings, situate them within the scientific landscape, and explain why they matter. Be clear, be concise, and base your arguments on the evidence. Remember, practice and feedback are absolutely essential for success. All right, now it's time to put this into practice. We're going to do a class activity. I want you to read the paper that's been provided. In each paragraph of the discussion, I want you to identify its purpose. Is it summarizing a key finding? Is it making a comparison to other literature? Is it discussing an implication or a limitation? You'll have about 30 minutes for this. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. Any questions about writing the discussion section? Maybe you faced challenges drafting discussion before. Share your experiences and let's learn together. Thank you all for your attention and enthusiasm today. Writing a discussion section is an art, and you're well on your way to mastering it. For more lessons and inspiration, visit my YouTube channel at The Shed Luminous. Keep writing, keep researching, and keep shining on. Have a wonderful day, everyone.